Great stuff right there. Thank you so much for staying with us. Welcome back to the AM Club here on MX24. My name is Miriam Uduak Mensah. Again, welcome, and we're delving into something really exciting. Again, I love exciting stuff, so that's what we do over here on the show. It's Lifestyle Daily, but we are excited to announce the 8th Women's Expo Ghana 2024 International Women's Day edition at the Atlantic Mall, Atomic Junction, Accra, from March 8th to the 10th or 2024. Participate to showcase your products and services. Use the platform to promote your products and services. Reach your target markets in the shortest possible time. As well, join us to celebrate International Women's Day on the 8th of March. Free health screening, medication review, family planning, and female reproductive health as well. Participate in discussion circles on self-care and women's choices in health, pension planning for the women entrepreneur, insurance for small businesses, digital and social media marketing, customer service, and more. Admission is absolutely free. So for my ladies, it is time for us to sit on a round table to have a conversation that is very important. Also, there's a kids playing area for us. For registration and to participate as well, contact 055 7874977 055 7874977. As well. Listen, this is a time for us to sit together, network, and learn a thing or two. So, ladies, do make time to join us from the 8th to the 10th of March. Ah, that's so cute.
That's what you're supposed to even do.
Ah.
Fantastic.
Thank you.
Anyways, thank you so much for joining us. It's time for us to get straight into Lifestyle Daily. Now, you do know, in fact, if you've been on the road with us for the whole month of February, we've been on a journey of tackling cancers in children. However, today we're tackling diabetes in children. Diabetes may not be a cancer, a type of cancer, but definitely it is a cancer in quote. Yes, because that's something we're going to dive straight into. And inside the studios and joining us with the conversation will be MLS Ransford Dake, who happens to be a medical laboratory scientist from the Kolebu Teaching Hospital. Good morning, sir. Welcome to the show.
Good morning.
Good morning. Do we call you Doc?
Well, it's fair.
It's fair. What's MLS?
Medical laboratory scientist.
Oh, how did I not get that? Dr. Ransford, thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you, too.
Awesome, awesome. Diabetes in children. When I saw the topic, I was like, diabetes in children?
And children also when you have diabetes.
Because this is why, don't get it twisted, this is why. We do know that diabetes is as a result of excess sugar in your body, right? So children now, but now after the body need developing. It's okay for sugar to now start entering and it shouldn't have any repercussions. How is it that children have diabetes? Do you want to?
Well, someone knows his stuff.
Doc Mimi.
Yes,
that's appropriate. Well, to begin with, you said something about diabetes not being cancer or a form of cancer. Well, to some point it is a form because they have some similarities. What may they be? Cancer, it's not curable. We manage it. So as diabetes. But then cancer can be quite severe, more than diabetes. Now let's go to the actual topic.
So, Doc, before that, so what you're trying to tell us right now is that diabetes, because you're saying we will just manage it.
Exactly.
So it cannot be cured?
No, it can't be cured. We are scientists that are still working around it to find curative measures. But for now, we manage it. But we can't cure it, just like cancer. We keep managing it. So there are therapies you do to manage it, but not to cure it. Okay, no, let's see how or the reason why it can be cured.
Right, okay. Right.
Now, if we talk about diabetes, people look at tree people, area, my gun people, sickly healer and all. Well, why do we say sugar? Now, we eat kinky. We don't eat someone like, well, I don't take in tea, I don't take in porridge, but then they are saying, Dr. Ibana saying, well, you take kinky. Well, that's carbohydrate. And the body doesn't actually need the kinky. Once you take in the kinky, you take in the muzzle of fufu. It gets into your system, metabolism takes place, and at the end of it, you get glucose. Okay, so the glucose it is like sugar, and that is why our ancestors said that it's area, because when you pass out urine, there's a taste of sugar in it. Earlier, well, back in the days when health wasn't that modernized or sophisticated, laboratory scientists, former laboratory technicians, they dip their hands in the urine and taste it to diagnose diabetes. So like, oh, this is sugary. Like, okay, and to area. So it came to stay.
Wow.
So that is it. Now, when you're looking at children, you're like, well, children taking sugar, why should children have diabetes? When looking at diabetes, you have two types of diabetes. We actually have many types, but the basic ones are two, which is type 1 diabetes, type 2, and gestational diabetes. But we mostly don't add it to the types of that because that is temporary. Okay. It comes and goes. Okay. It's not permanent, but in some few cases, if people or patients or clients are into managed well, they get it. Okay. So now, when you take in kinky, okay, it has to go down to you. It has to synthesize into glucose. And this glucose is energy. Okay, we have something called acetylcholine, but that's scientific. We are not in for that. So that's the glucose. When you have the glucose, what happens to you? Your cells need to absorb this energy. They need to use it to work. Okay. But here in this case, your cell is not absorbing the glucose. So it gets stuck in the blood, get piled up. It shouldn't be in the blood. Once it gets into the blood, it's way back in base, we have this osmosis. I don't know whether you probably remember.
Diffusion and osmosis.
Exactly. Yeah. Semi-permeable membrane. Yeah. So there's something called pancreas, okay? And God placed the pancreas in us, and the pancreas promotes something called insulin. So the insulin is more like the driver, and the meat thing that you use now. So the insulin actually drives the glucose into our cells. Okay, so the insulin is more like a driver without a meat.
Without a meat.
So it takes it straight to the cells for us to get the energy to use it. But then, with type 1 diabetes, okay, with that we call it, there's no insulin at all. There's a deficiency of insulin. So with that one, the pancreas is not even giving any insulin. There's no driver to drive the energy or the glucose into the cells for the cells to utilize it. So that it gets piled in the blood. So when you test for sugar, realize your sugar is skyrocket because your body is not getting access to the glucose. So that's the type 1. So with type 1, there is no production of insulin. Meaning there's no driver. And once there's no driver to carry the insulin into the cells, then the cells can utilize it. Yes. Exactly. So that's type 1. And that's mostly found in children. So you actually call it juvenile diabetes. Because it's if you to go into details, it's an autoimmune disease. And you say autoimmune is like your body fighting against something. It's automatic. There's nothing. Your body itself is fighting against you. So with that, children born, okay, having some form of autoimmune disease attack the beta cells in the pancreas. The beta cells is what is the actual driver there in the pancreas. That's like, hello, let's go to the cells for us to work. Okay, but this time around, in children, the body itself is killing these drivers. When it happens like that, then there's no production of insulin. Then they keep eating. They're taking toffee. They're taking sweets. And when it happens that way, then there's more blood glucose in the body. Then you go to the hospital and we diagnose them of having a type 1 diabetes. So diabetes is all about more glucose in the body, excess glucose in the blood. Then you have the type 2, but the type 2 is more about adults.
So now let's stay on the type 1, which is for the children. So we've come to, from what you are saying, would say that they get attacked by this disease from birth, or it's usually after birth? How do they come in contact with the disease? That's
a good question. So there are two instances. One, they get it from birth. So now let's go back. I said gestational diabetes. So gestational diabetes for pregnant women. Okay, they develop once they are pregnant. And mind you, you are sharing everything in you with the baby. So if you have any disease, if you have any viral infection, HIV, hepatitis, what have you, the baby gets it once you are not treated. And if your glucose is also skyrocket, okay, you are interacting with the baby. So you keep pumping a lot of glucose into the baby. So there are times they are born with it. Okay, and there are some people gradually they develop it. gradual. Once they are, like you said, they keep growing. Okay, so whatever is in them, whatever is not quite healthy, keeps attacking itself. Then at the end of the day, they develop what we diagnose them with type 1 diabetes.
Now, the one that they get from the gestational one makes sense. But then as a child, so we've learned over here that, I mean, we've had a few doctors pass through who tell us that as a child, the body is now developing. So naturally, there's no room for diseases to grow naturally, unless, of course, there's an issue with the system. So the body is now developing. You also say that there's more strength in this child than there is in an older person. So the antibodies are stronger to fight. So you'd have that working for the children. But then there's the case where, right at their developing stage, where there's more strength, they get this diabetes. What happens at that point when they get this disease?
Okay, so what happened is...
Or let me just say it this way. What goes wrong for them to get diabetes? Yes.
So, well, looking at type 1, okay, not necessarily children, adults also get it, but mostly is the juvenile. Okay, so what makes it wrong is they are growing. You said something to the doctor, the system is functioning well. Okay, but with these people, they have an autoimmune disease. An autoimmune disease, we don't know what triggers it. You could be there, you just get a cancer. You could be there, your cells could just start attacking you. Rheumatoid arthritis and what have you. Some of these things, we have risk factors. Okay, but then personally, out of line, they just happen to be there. So when they happen to be there, what makes it a little problematic for children is, you see, when they are young, nobody thinks a child is going to get diabetes. Nobody thinks, well, glucose breaks down when there's more energy. You break it down, you run. Children run all around the place. They are very active, okay? But here in this case, once you are eating, you get the glucose over there in your blood, okay? And the actual driver, the insulin, which is supposed to drive your sugar or the glucose into yourself for you to work, it's not there.
It's not there.
So they keep piling up. Okay, and they get to a point before parents are going to realize, by then it's late. And as children, sorry, I need to go local. Is that okay?
No, it's fine. It's fine.
Maybe did now. My mother will say, "Hey, boy, the fufu no." You understand? So they pile all this food in them, and at the end of the day, the glucose doesn't get broken down. So when they come to the hospital and return, at times even clinicians barely do we actually even think of testing for sugar levels for children, because we assume probably whatever is wrong with the baby's malaria and infection. But then gradually we are having a standard where wherever you come to the hospital, regardless of the age, we check your glucose level. Glucose level is supposed to be from 3.5 to 6.8 if you haven't eaten. That's the fasting blood sugar resource. And when you've eaten, which is random, is 3.5 to 7.8. Now, these children come in like 10. What's going on? Have you eaten? Says, no. What time did you eat? You calculate like 2 hours earlier. No, then there's something wrong. Then what do we do? So it doesn't end there. So once you touch the sugar level in the morning and it's 13 or 15, that doesn't mean you're diabetic. Reason being that probably the food you ate earlier, okay, in the evening before you went to bed, was so much of carbohydrate. So there's enough glucose in you. That's why it's piled in there. So you don't test in the morning, then goes early, then like, I'm diabetic. No. So you have a test glycated. Okay, we fed up probe, and that tests for 3 months quantity of glucose in you. So we do that, we look at your red blood cells, and we try to figure out the consumption of glucose for 3 months.
For 3 months.
So once it's ahead, it's so high, the margins are so high, then we're like, okay, so this is diabetes. Because for 3 months, your insulin should be working, you should be active, you're going around, driving, whatever you're doing is supposed to break down glucose. So once 3 months, you still have unnecessary glucose, high levels of glucose in you, then...
That same applies for the children?
Yes.
Same applies for the children?
Yes.
So I believe that I have encountered a few diabetic adults. So I do know that they have the insulin. Is that what it's called?
Yes.
Yeah, the injection they take on their own.
Yes.
Do you do that for the children as well?
Yes. So we have something called IDDM, which is characteristics of type 1, which is insulin-dependent diabetes mellitus.
Okay.
So they are insulin-dependent because the pancreas is not working. The pancreas is not producing insulin. They have to be giving your own insulin. You have to do it artificially, okay? Because originally or naturally, the pancreas is not working. So that's how come they have to be giving the subcutaneous injection just to reduce.
The children will also be doing that.
Well, we have some. You have been through the cancer training with some other doctors.
Yes.
Well, whenever children are exposed to some of these diseases, they get used to it. They grow more than they are not supposed to grow. It's sad. You see children injecting themselves. From the very onset, parents have to help, clinicians have to help, but it gets to a point where they harden up. Hello, this is the situation now. They just go there and they just inject the insulin.
Mimi gets emotional when it comes to these things, so we understand her.
Well, it's sad.
Yeah. So this one is type 1.
Yeah, that's type 1.
Let's get to type 2.
Okay, so type 2. So the type 2, we actually have lifestyle. Lifestyle.
Good.
So in type 1, you know that there's an anomaly in the system. But with type 2, what's type 2 diabetes? Type 2 is your cells. The insulin is there, sufficient insulin for you, but your cells is not utilizing it.
Okay.
Your cells are not making good use of the glucose. And that is lifestyle. That is because you have unnecessary much glucose in your body. Okay, and you're not utilizing it. Like some of us, you go home late, you get Indomie, you sleep, you take an Indomie and you sleep. It becomes so much in your system. And you're not actually doing any work for the cell. Like, hello, insulin, please come. I need you to work. I'm going for a run. I need you. And so it piles up. Then at the end of the day, you are diagnosed with diabetes.
So that's when the exercises come in?
Exactly. That's the reason.
For children?
So, well, for children as well. But like I said earlier, with children, it's because there's an anomaly. Okay? It's not because the insulin is there. If the insulin is there, then you can exercise for the cells to utilize it. Okay? But with this thing, the insulin is not there.
So are you trying to say that the type 2 doesn't usually affect the children?
Okay, so the type 2 doesn't, but to some point it does because of lifestyle. It's not about an anomaly in the system. It's because they eat late, they are overfed. Oh, maybe did he? Then they keep giving them bengu. Did pa?
Like I say.
Yeah, but I can see tough. No, your child is taking more than necessary. And when they tend to be a little bit active, like, hey, and so you keep them at one place to be playing video games, probably reading or something, and the glucose is not utilized. Okay. They eat more and they do less.
Okay.
So they also are at risk of developing type 2 diabetes. So with these types, type 2 is 90% prevalent because of lifestyle. Because there are few times you get children with having anomalies with their pancreas. So type 2 is much prevalent.
Now let's move to the point where we find a solution. Because now we've diagnosed this, we found what the causes are. How do we manage diabetes in children, aside of, the, let's say, altering of the lifestyle that has already been a mess, and then the insulin they have to take on their own, which, by the way, insulin, But then again, aside of these two things, what are the other measures that are used in managing diabetes in children?
Well, if you don't know, okay, what are you diagnosing? What are you managing? So from the very onset, the most important aspect of this is regular checkups, regardless of the age. Don't say my baby or my child is young, so there's no need for a checkup. It's very relevant. So they wake up in the morning. Now we have a lot of glucometers. So glucometer is a machine or a kit used to test for diabetes. So you could do same for your children.
Is it expensive?
No, I think a maximum of 300 Ghana cedis you should get one. Okay. It's a home kit. Most people are having it now. So as adults, most of the parents know some of these things, so they check for themselves alone. But now it would be wise and prudent if their children could also be part of the testing and checking. So they equally do that in the morning. That's one. And two, with the children, their parents are supposed to check their diet. The fact that their children doesn't mean their diet shouldn't be checked. You shouldn't be overfeeding them. You can't give the body more than it needs. So their diet is supposed to be checked, and the time factors they eat. You say, then. And I've been 10 will be difficult. Mama made conflicts. No. So at times when they are hungry in the evening, children eat a lot. It's rather wise to give them fruits, that would be better. That would boost their immune system. That will give them the maximum nutrients they need. Then in the morning, then they can go in for the banquet and the fulfill the rest. But most importantly, they should be active. Because when you are not active, then your cells can't utilize the glucose in you. So through it all, the number one thing is to be testing regularly your checkups, to check your diet, and most importantly, you should be active.
So the specific diet is much more of the fruits?
Yeah.
Or are there any specific
Diet. So
diets that we should look out for?
So once someone is diagnosed with diabetes, okay, we have other factors we look at. We have types, like I said, and according to types, so it depends on the diet, and some other factors, probably you're obese.
Okay.
Okay. We also have a different thing for people who are diabetic.
So
and
let's stick with type 1, for instance. What is the specific diet for someone with type 1?
Oh, well, so
In fact, children.
So with children, one major thing is that's going to cut up on sugar.
Okay.
Completely.
Not completely, but then they are going to take the brown sugar and not sufficient. Well, our children, they have the liberty of using sugar, but with these people, it's going to be very reduced because the insulin is not there to assist them. So it's going to be very reduced. And they don't eat late, because once they eat late, then they shouldn't be awake around 12 trying to look for their insulin jabs to be giving jabs. So once they are should eat earlier, like 5, or they give their jabs, and they know they are done with meals. So there's nothing like they having to wake up at 1 because sugar is high, hyperglycemia. So hyperglycemia is when there's so much sugar in your blood, you have to be giving their jabs. So that is the most strict part of it. Checked on their diet, not eating late, and not eating too much carbohydrates. They check on their carbohydrates, and probably that's it.
Right. What are some of the symptoms? What do we see? So is this a situation where you get to see something your child is going through that would insinuate that the child has diabetes? Do we have symptoms?
Oh, well, yes, we do. But unlike several diseases, diabetes is a little in vitro. It's in you. So barely do we see. But then some of the symptoms are polyuria. So what's polyuria? Polyuria is frequent urination. And why is it so? Why should a diabetic person be passing urine frequent? So God in his own wisdom has placed the body in the mechanism, the body himself protect himself if you are not trying to reasonable enough to think about yourself. So once there's so much glucose in your blood, your kidneys is going to filter a lot out. Osmotic diuresis, so your kidneys will be bringing a lot of urine out. You might be thinking you are passing much more unnecessary urine, but no, that's a way of your body trying to put in a mechanism to flush the glucose out. So when somebody is having polyuria, frequent urination, a lot of people think about STDs and all, but it's wise and secure to equally think about diabetes as well. And obesity as well. When you are obese, it's another factor of or another risk factor for you to realize that, okay, so this person is having diabetes or could be having diabetes, then do the checkup and all.
Okay. With a lot of parents are watching us. Children go to school, and parents are not there with them in school. With some children who have diabetes, let's say type 2 or type 1, whatever it is, what would you recommend for parents, in diagnostic, and how can they, be able to be with them or, manage the whole situation, because they are not there with them. I mean, the teachers are there, but, the teacher is not the parent, you get me? So what would be your advice for that?
That is one thing parents mostly lack in that. They mostly default in that. So once your child is diagnosed with some of these diseases, diabetes, cancer, no, we in health practice advise you that, hello, there are times your children can't go to school.
Whoa.
Yes, children with cancer, there are times they don't go to school. They have to stay home because we wouldn't need a case for something because anything could trigger it. These are special children. So the regular way you go about children, it's different with these people. So there are times like, hello, please, we are pleading with you. Let your baby sit in the house for 3 months while we keep checking out to adjust their glucose levels. And it's best and wise for parents to speak to their teachers. It's an institution, okay? And these people are equally reasonable. They are teachers of crying out loud. They know what goes about. So once your child is diagnosed with them, like, hello, okay, so you can take your son to school. You can take Raya to school. You as the mother, it's prudent to meet with the administration of the school and let them know that, okay, so this is the situation at hand. my ward is a special ward. He or she has been diagnosed with type 1 diabetes. And this is what we do. This is the mechanism at home. You know, children are a little bit wayward. They go overboard when they're in school because of other colleagues over there. So you tell them that, okay, so this is the situation now. At this point, okay, they're supposed to administer an insulin. At this point, he's not supposed to take in rice. So we serve with our own food. So it's fine and reasonable for my ward to bring in his or her own food. Because here, he takes in brown bread now. He takes in brown sugar now. So you being the parents to make sure that whatever advice or suggestions we give to you regarding to food to your ward, you make sure you prepare them at home, give it to them, then they take it. Rather than they going for the usual feeding in the schools, rather than they go without their teachers not knowing, anything could happen. And because one characteristic about diabetes, there is slow healing. They don't heal quickly as a usual person should do.
When it's triggered.
Exactly. They don't heal quickly as a usual person should do. So when you know children, they go around jumping, running all around. So with this person, if you don't tell the tutor that, hello, my ward has been diagnosed of this, hence he or she shouldn't be running about, not indulging in so much strenuous activities in the school, in games, these indoor games, not necessarily outdoor games. If you don't tell the teachers, they don't know some of these things. The children go, they injure themselves, then becomes a problem with healing.
Yes.
And that leads to other things as well. So it's prudent for you to go in them like, hello, this is it. You are fair enough with the teachers, the tutors, to let them know what the condition or the situation is. Then show them the measures physicians or clinicians are giving to you. Then they adhere to it. Then we are both good to go.
Okay, we were here when we got to... Why's your face like this? I so don't like you in this state. Anyways, I'm getting your emotions.
Let me tell you something. Let me say this one, though.
Yeah.
If you meet a child with cold or catarrh, you know that these diseases are too big for a child to manage, because common cold,
The stress.
sometimes you want to take it
For yourself.
play.
Yeah, so the child can be free.
You know.
But we were here, and when we were discussing about some of the other cancerous things, and we got to even find out that some of these cancers just, affect how the child even operates and thinking and all that. My question to you now is, with diabetes, apart from the symptoms and everything, I mean, are there any specific challenges that could, trigger probably slowness in something? What happens, especially with children?
Okay. Well, so it has an effect on the brains, the thinking capacity, because the glucose we produce, the energy we have in the cells, trust me, the brain utilizes more. Reason being that in everything we do as human beings, is the brain first. Your eyes are just there, but the brain is what is telling that, hello, these are glasses you are wearing, hello, I'm in a studio. So the brain is very proactive. Now, in this situation, your body is not utilizing the glucose. You don't have energy for the brain to work. So they become timid, they become slow, their thinking capacity is limited, and they are inhibited. So they become slow in everything they do because the brain is not having sufficient glucose to function. So that's how it goes about.
Listen, before we conclude on this conversation, I think that parents should, it's imperative. Now, things have changed. People, what we eat, the things we do, lifestyle in general has changed. Please, whatever it's worth, pay attention to the children. Because imagine that a very brilliant child becomes slow all of a sudden. And we learned this about when we're doing the brain tumor. The child just becomes slow. And then again, you know how children are. When you're not passing your exams, when you're failing in class, other children will be laughing at you. And then they lose confidence. So it's important that we please take this education seriously. If you have a friend, a sister, a family member who hasn't been following this conversation, go back and go and watch all our episodes because it's important. This is heartbreaking. So in a year, is there a statistic that reads out how many children are affected with diabetes in Ghana?
Well, obviously there are statistics. There are statistics over there. We do the demographics and all, but I can't state the current trend. But then there's a survey that says that diabetes in children could double in 2025 by 50%. It's going to be an increase by 50%. due to the lifestyle. But the previous statistics shows that some areas, it's funny enough, even Greater Accra, but Western region and Central and Ashanti region are having they are leading in diabetes.
Greater Accra is not even
funny enough.
Wow.
Maybe the stress.
Wow.
Look at how frustrated I am.
Maybe the
People,
stress here.
pardon me today. So what could be the prevailing factor in this cases, like, you know, in the reason why maybe in Ashanti region there's more diabetes cases in children than there is in Accra?
Well, if you are to look at we as human beings, we all have different cultures. It boils down to culture, because diabetes is a lifestyle disease, okay? And in as much we are all Ghanaians, it varies from a certain point. Looking at Accra here, the stress alone, you know, the
hustle and bustle alone will break the group.
The stress alone. But even if you are diabetic, the stress alone, you go to the hospital, the amount they call in, nobody will tell you to start breaking on glucose down. But over there, probably they live in a very serene atmosphere. They are quite relaxed. And at times, too, heat is also another factor.
Heat?
Yes, when you are sweating profusely, that is you breaking glucose down. And I cried, you know, heat everywhere. There's so much heat everywhere. But some of these people, they live in serene environments. They are okay. So it's like there's excess glucose in them. So that's another prevailing
That could be
factor.
okay. Has there been any success story of any child who came through with diabetes, but, you know, somehow they kind of, you said you can't be managed, but managed to a point where it's almost as if there's no trigger at any point, and they heal even from wounds and stuff like that? Is there any success story like that to calm me down?
Of course, Ghana is having a great health system. There are several children over there in schools. They go about their usual lifestyle, and you won't even notice that, they've been diagnosed with this. And it boils down to the efficacy of it, how effective the treatment went about. With diabetes, there shouldn't be, I forgot to take my medicine. It shouldn't work that way. Once you are on it, you should be taking it quite often. So there are a few success stories out there. They go about their usual, as if they don't have it. They come for check. So depending on how you go about your medications, it tells the number of times you should visit the hospitals. So somebody, if you tell, hello, please go and come back in 3 months, there is someone taking good care of his or herself. Okay, but they have the stubborn ones too. They barely take their treatment. They're like, hello, come back in a week time, come back in a month time. So these people mostly default. They barely take their medication. They barely take instructions. But the ones who they adhere to treatment, they are mostly okay.
It's managed properly. Okay. So are there alternative treatments for diabetes? So aside of the regular insulin and the things that you talked about and some of the medications, are there alternative drugs that help in managing the situation?
Well, you know, Ghana, I believe there's a war between orthodox and herbal now.
Yeah.
We come in and say paracetamol is okay for painkiller. Somebody also comes and say, like, okay, mango trees is okay for painkillers. So there's a war now. But me being the orthodox field, I know that such orthodox medicines are okay. I haven't come across other alternatives yet. That's my point of view.
Okay.
I haven't come across any herbal means or any other alternatives that's able to treat or get people better. To my point of view, the orthodox way, the ones we give in the hospitals, are quite okay. They get them well, and that's it.
Have you ever had any situation where a parent brings their child to the hospital, diagnosed with diabetes, and then they go about it like the Christ way, like they go about it in a spiritual way, like and I won't take the medicine, but we'll pray about it. And how did you handle such a situation?
Trust me, it's not easy.
No.
It's not easy. They are most of them come, you tell them, oh, this is like, no way, no, what do you mean? I don't take in sugar. I'm like, my but hey, see, you already know, catch me, no. We pray, we go to church. I'm even fasting now. Like, so with that, we take a lot of time for counseling. So in diabetes treatment, one key part or aspect of management is counseling. You make them understand what it is. This is not from the devil. This is not demonic, okay? This is your own body doing this to you. So there's a way out. There are several instances they come in and there's a lot of drama at the hospital. What what are you telling me? My son is having malaria. Telling my son is having diabetes. It doesn't work that way. Malaria and all that.
You start binding the devil over there.
You know, right? And well, in science too, we know science is not 100%. Science is 99%. And we have to look at the causes of diabetes, both type 1 and type 2. There's something called idiopathic. So idiopathic means that there are no etiologies. Okay. So that's the only time we attribute it to family people. So there are some points where some of the diseases, we go in detail, there are some aspects of it, it's idiopathic, meaning that there are known etiologies. We don't know the usual, what's actually causing that. You understand? Though we know about insulin deficiency and your cells not using, there are times it becomes idiopathic. We could try all means, your pancreas is working, where your cells are taking the energy, but you're still diabetic. Then that one, we attribute it to your house people, but it's only few instances.
And is it ethical for a doctor to say that, wait,
extremely unethical. This is a secret. we don't see that, but then that's why we are there. Scientists, we always need to research because we don't believe that is not a science to us. So we need to get the science behind it. But all we know is that there are times it's idiopathic. So we just attribute it to the 1% that is left, the 1% where scientists can figure it out. Because 99%.
Doc, what of starving? Is that a factor?
Of course, that's one thing people know. That's a good question.
Let me drink my water.
So what happens is that when the body, in its own sense, have its own mechanism. Okay. So once you are not eating, okay, once you eat, you ate. Okay, there's something called glycogen. Okay, so that's the body's reserve of food. Okay, the body has a wisdom to reserve food. Even of you not eat, no matter how much you eat, there's some percentage that goes. So glycogen is reserved, it's stored. So after 12 hours, glucose is supposed to be depleted from you, 12 to 14 hours. The kinky you ate should be gone from your system. Okay. You're hungry, you're on a show, you can't live to eat wachi. So at that point, then glucagon comes as an hormone that is induced to increase glucose levels in your body. So that opens the glycogen store, like, hello, let's go to the fridge. It opens in you. And there's food in you. You might not realize that there are a few times you're hungry. You don't eat for a longer period. Once you get that ball of kinky, then you feel like you don't have the energy. That's because internally you've ate. Internally, your body has gone to the glycogen stores, had some more, some kinky, and your body is okay. But just that you personally, because you haven't seen with your eyes eating food, jollof rice, you feel like, well, you are hungry. But then once you get the food, like, I'm full. The food is not going. It's because your body has done justice to it. So there's a glycogen in us. So there's always a food reserve. The body can stay for 3 days without food. Because once glycogen is out, there are other things that we get to suffice or to hold us for the time being.
I want you to reiterate this again. So there is no cure?
No.
We manage.
No, it's managed. So we are still looking for cure.
Thank you so much, Dr. Ransford. We appreciate your coming, and I believe, again, that you have final words for parents with children, not children living with diabetes, but with children generally. What are your final words to parents?
Oh, well, my final words to parents is they should be very keen on what they ingest in their children, and checkups is very necessary. They can walk to the hospital or the pharmacy for their sugar levels. They shouldn't say it's a disease for an adult, or it's a disease for adults now. Children equally have it. So there should be frequent checkups, and they should be very mindful of the things their children ingest. And I think that should be okay. I think those are the basics or the fundamental ones.
Alrighty.
Thank you so much. This is a conversation we've been having. We just ended a conversation on childhood diabetes, and it is clear on this show today that indeed children do find themselves in that situation, and if they do, we've given you a few steps to be able to manage it. Also, Doc has told us to make sure that as we are checking for diabetes in ourselves as adults, we do make sure to check for our children as well. It's not alien to them. They do find themselves in that position. Medical laboratory scientist, Dr. Ransford Dake, he's from the Kolebu Teaching Hospital. How do we find you?
Okay, so I'm at the emergency department. When you come to Kolebu, you ask of A&E laboratory, and you'll find me.
Can we find you on social media if we wanted to have an extensive... If someone wanted to call you like, bruh, I said, now I can't MX24.
Okay, well, I could give my contact out.
Yeah, go ahead.
Are you on social media?
I'm not that.
Yeah, no.
I'm not that effective on social media.
Bro don't have time for y'all social media.
Excuse
Please
me.
give us your number.
So my telephone number is 055
Okay.
815 9937. And I reiterate, 055 815 9937. So
Thank you
that's
so
me.
much, Dr. Ransford, for
one
making
last
time. Yes.
And I'm a representative of a patriotic health team.
Okay.
Yes, so it's a group of health practitioners who is very key on diseases across Ghana, communicable diseases, non-communicable diseases, and we assist in health outreach. We bring the hospital to you. You don't come to the hospital.
Oh, okay.
We bring it to you. So they could also follow Patriotic Health Team on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram.
Oh.
We are the PHT. They could do that.
Good job.
Interesting to know.
Good job. Good
Very
job.
interesting to know.
But keep up the good work. We really appreciate
Exactly.
you. And thank you so much for staying through this conversation. We have great news from Michael to you. It's time to hit the beach again, and time to reignite our passion for beach sustainability. With the first edition of Beach Please for 2024 kicks off on the 2nd of March. This time, our beach cleanup exercise takes place at Bola Beach, right behind Independence Square, from 6:30 a.m. to 10 a.m. Come clean up the beach and push the word on environmental sustainability. It starts with you and how you dispose your plastic. Visit michael.com/pages/beach please to sign up to volunteer now. You can also donate to clean up via michael.com. Beach Please, it's powered by michael.com in partnership with the Polo Beach Club, Ahaban GLF, the Ghana Tourism Authority, and MX24 TV. For more information or inquiries, call 0532 964 011, 0532 964 014. Beach Please, 2nd March 2024, 6:30 a.m. at Bola Beach. See you there.
And of course, Moments in Accra coming to you handy. MX24 and Travel with Drew presents Moments in Accra. On Wednesday, 6th of March, we'll be headed to the forecourt of the State House for the Akple Festival. But first, we're taking you on a fun and incredible tour of Accra. We kick off from 7 a.m. with a tour of the Kwame Nkrumah Museum and the Accra Museum as well. We'll make a stop at the Black Star Square for a photo session, explore the Arts Center, and visit the Jamestown Lighthouse before heading to the ultimate cultural experience at the Akple Festival with live music performances, a variety of food, drinks, entertainment, and many more. The tour package comes with transportation, snacks, drinks, lunch, and entry fees for all the activities as well. Sign up for only 500 Ghana cedis, yes, per person via mx24.app/travel, okay? Or send a WhatsApp message to this number, 0592 292 746, 0592 292 746 to sign up now. Moments in Accra is brought to you in partnership with Accra Travels, Navigate Ghana, and YFM, and hosted by Miss Drew. And she'll be joining us later on the show for that too as well. Okay, so time for us to get into the plug. The plug is up next.